So I've been using for the last week the OnePlus 7, and I did review the OnePlus 7 Pro, and it has an amazing screen on it. The 90Hz is great, but this phone is still really good, and it has one thing that is very attractive, of course. It's much cheaper, a lot cheaper, especially if you import. I feel that this is still a phone worthy of attention, one to look at, because you've got that brilliant OnePlus's Oxygen OS on there, which is so fast, so smooth. And even though it doesn't have the 90 Hz, the experience overall is excellent with this phone, as you'll find out in this full review of the OnePlus 7.
In the box you will find a clear TPU case, red Type-C cable, the dash charger, so this is 20 watts, and in my testing it fully charges the phone in just 1 hour and 22 minutes. So not as fast as the OnePlus 7 Pro's warp charging, to be expected. You've got an instruction leaflet as well and a SIM tray tool. So this OnePlus 7 is in fact a Chinese model. I got this from Banggood because I saved about 150 euros instead of buying it locally. So it does come with Hydrogen OS, but it's very easy to flash over Oxygen OS. All you need to do is download the firmware, which is about 2 gigabytes, move it to the internal storage, and then from the update settings menu, just go and flash it. And then the phone will flash, reboot, and you're on Oxygen OS. Very easy to do. The OnePlus 7 is a light 186 grams. It's just 8.6 millimeters thick. That's without the camera bulge. Including that camera bulge then brings it up to about 10.2 millimeters. So the look of this phone is very similar to the OnePlus 6T. We have a teardrop notch, 16 megapixel front-facing camera, and then our earpiece, which also doubles as a secondary loudspeaker, which is good to see. So the build is metal and glass. The glass on the back has a curvature to it, as you can see. Along the top where we've just got a secondary mic here for noise cancellation, used in voice calls and for video. There is no 3.5mm headphone jack with this phone or a micro SD card slot. The SIM slot, as you can see, will take 2 nano SIMs. There's a gasket around it, so there is splash resistance with this phone, but they didn't go for an official IP rating. Instead, they spent all that money on advertising. With the cameras on the back, we have a 48 megapixel camera with a 5 megapixel one used for the depth effect, and then a dual tone LED flash. The volume button's just like the power button, is made out of metal, has a good feel to it, and it does not rattle around. On the right, the alert slider and our power button. And on the bottom of the phone, you will find our Type-C port. So it supports video out. We have one loudspeaker at the microphone, and you can see 2 antenna lines. So overall, it has a very good build size, easy to get access to those buttons, and I prefer, as mentioned, the smaller size and weight of the OnePlus 7 versus the OnePlus 7 Pro. And here it is next to my Huawei P30 Pro. You can see they have a very similar size to them. So we have an OLED Full HD Plus screen in this. The resolution is 1080 by 2340. Maximum brightness 470 lux, and it doesn't have any curvature to it. So that for me is a positive. I like the fact that it's a flat screen and it is a little bit smaller versus the OnePlus 7 Pro. But of course we don't have that super smooth 90 Hz refresh rate. It's the standard 60 here in the cheaper model. Now the white balance, that can be tweaked in the settings to your own personal preference, including the scaling, the DPI, and the scaling of the text size as well. It overall is a very good screen, and I don't have any complaints with it. So let's talk about performance. Oxygen OS for me has always been the best Android experience you can get in terms of speed. Everything is very slick. They've got customization and it's not full of bloat, and that hasn't changed, of course. So it is really good, the performance. I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but I'm running full gestures, and you'll find here, you can see, look at how smooth this is. So swapping between various different apps, not a problem there. Occasionally I have actually seen a little tiny bit of stutter. You get the notifications at the top, so unlike other Chinese brands of mobiles I review, they're not messing with the notifications there, even though we do have the notch. Well, even it's just a small water drop one, teardrop, whatever you want to call it there. Great performance, great ROM, and I've had, with the week of using it now, no real problems. The only thing I have noticed that I want to demonstrate is the Fingerprint Reader. Now, I won't be able to catch this on camera because I've been trying and I can't. So you're going to tap the button to wake and face unlocking or first demonstrate. So it sees me and boom, it is really quick, okay? Very, very fast there. So let's try the thumb fingerprint that I used. Very quick. Okay, not a problem, but I have noticed that there are 2 bugs, that now and then sometimes the Fingerprint Reader just didn't work for me whatsoever. It's only happened once now out of using it for a week. I used my thumb on it about 5 times the maximum attempts, and I couldn't get into it. I don't know if my thumb was just too dry or what happened, but they're not as good as the old capacitive ones that we used to have on the rear of phones there. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. The other is the wireless, that a couple of times I've gone and it's not picking up. Wireless is on, but it just does not detect any network. So there's a little bit of a funny bug there, and that's only happened to me a couple of times during the week. It's a very minor annoyance. So there's a couple of things I wanted to run through. So the screen calibration, as mentioned, you can tweak this. You can go into advanced. I keep it on natural. To me, that looks the best. Vivid tends to be a little bit oversaturated for my own liking anyway. So you get 236 gigabytes free of storage on the 256 gigabyte model, and I am on the latest firmware, of course, like all of my phone reviews. Here is the apps you get straight out of the box if you happen to, of course, get the international model. So we do have Netflix on there and maybe too many Google apps on there. So very tiny little bit of bloatware, but hardly anything. This is great to see. Widevine level 1. So that means Netflix and Full HD, Amazon Prime. Camera API level 3, that's what we want as well. So Google camera ports will be needed really if you want to get the best and you want that night sight, because let's face it, as I'll show you later on in the review, that night mode on their camera is not really that good. So it supports GPS, dual frequency, you can see right here, carrier frequency, so level 1, level 5, that confirms it. And you do get a lot of satellites in view, 52 here. In use, 27, and the tracking to me seems really, really good. The Snapdragon chipsets have been good for so long. No problems like the old MediaTeks. 4 meters of accuracy too there. And here's our internal storage, so UFS 3.0 spec. Very, very quick. You can see there, look at that sequential read. And the writes, okay, not quite as fast, but the random reads and writes too there, very, very good. So no bottlenecks with that whatsoever. Antutu score, not the highest I've seen, but it is still very, very good. So it is a powerhouse of a mobile. Now, the wireless, just like the OnePlus 7 Pro that I reviewed, excellent. Top marks here. This is really, really good performance. So right here, I got a maximum of 652 megabits per second. That's kind of unheard of for a mobile phone. It is so quick. And the range is good too. So over the other side of the studio, still getting 100, which once it's over 100 is good. That for me is fine. Now battery life, very good here. Much better than I actually expected. As you can see, the screen on time that I have 9 hours and 36 minutes. Here's the usage. So a bit of YouTube, Fortnite, Twitter, PUBG. I gave it a bit of a hammering. And overnight when I left it, I only lost 4%. So the standby battery drain too, very good on this phone. And then you can see there's that 9 hours, 37 minutes, the final result that I got. And also GSAM battery monitor. So I only made 13 minutes of voice calls over the 2 days or so that I was using it. Onto audio. So in the box, you would have seen that we don't get a 3.5mm headphone adapter, which is a little bit disappointing. I think they should have included that. I mean, what does it cost? It's not much at all. They're doing an Apple there. They want you to buy it. So I wanted to talk about the loudspeakers as well. They sound good. So we've got sound coming out the top. We have a little bit of bass, more bass I would say coming out of the bottom. And I'll just show you too that the performance here, look at that scrolling performance, very, very good. And I'll give you now a very quick sound sample here, loading up one of my videos. In Chinese, you need to either reinstall that yourself in English. The Chinese CD key that's in there for Windows 10 should pull through, or upgrade it. So I'm going to upgrade this one to Windows 10 Pro. That'll allow me then to install the language pack, but also keep the factory. What about the call quality? So this is something that I think a lot of reviewers just completely skip. It sounds fine to me. Noise cancellation is working well. The other end said I sounded good and they sounded fine to me. So there's no complaints here whatsoever. Call quality is good. On to gaming now. So this one's pretty obvious. We've got the fastest current Android chipset on here and GPU. So the performance is good. This is Fortnite and you still can't get it over 30 frames per second. Even with this current chipset in here, to me is ridiculous. On the Epic setting, let's see how it performs. So this is a constant 30 frames per second. We really need that frame cap to be lifted as mentioned. So no problems. You can see it right there. No matter what I'm doing, even with the explosions, lots of players on screen at the start as well, it's not an issue. And let's see, this player's going to kill me. Yeah, dead already. Moving over to the camera now, this is the camera review portion, so we'll give you some samples. So we've got an option here in the Pro mode. If you wanted to shoot RAW, then you can do that. If you want to shoot the 48 megapixel shot, and that's a JPEG file, then you can do that as well. So we've got control of the focus, shutter rate, white balance, ISO here in the Pro mode. So if we go back into the other settings, so standard for video, we've got 4K 60 frames per second on the rear, and 4K 60/30, I'll give you a sample of that. This is to swap over to the front-facing camera. So we're missing out on a pop-up camera, ultra-wide lens, and the 2x zoom camera that we have on the Pro model. So if you need that, I am missing the ultra-wide, I have to admit. If you need that, then get, of course, the Pro model. Everything else here is pretty straightforward. Photo mode, you have 2x digital zoom, and the portrait mode with the blurred backgrounds. The stitching seems to be okay, but here are some samples from the front and rear cameras, stills, and video. This is 4K, so we get very good electronic image stabilization. You will pick up on a bit of wind noise. It's always windy here on the coast as expected. The footage is good, but due to the electronic image stabilization crop, I find it's not as sharp, for example, as the Samsung Galaxy S9 that I used to have and the S9 Plus. When I'm walking at the moment, you can see the stabilization is doing a good job, but it's still not quite the best you'll find, but overall the quality is very good. Let's take a look now at the front-facing camera. So we have quite a bit of a crop with the front-facing camera. Holding my arm right out is really as far as I can, but at least it does have stabilization here. The only area that the video is lacking in is the audio quality due to a low bit rate. So like Xiaomi, they need to improve upon this, the audio quality in video.
Alright, this is going to be really quick because this is overall a very solid phone. It still has a really good screen in it. I prefer the flat screens, I don't like the curves so much. Okay, if you want the 90 Hz, you want the ultra wide, you want the pop-up camera, you don't want the notch and the 2x zoom camera, go for the 7 Pro if you can afford it. Of course, that's the better phone. But it's also bigger. It's also a lot more expensive, so save the money because you've still got Oxygen OS, you've still got the Snapdragon 855, UFS 3 storage. It is super quick. I've only got 2 bugs to complain about. The wireless, sometimes I ran into no networks showing up whatsoever. I just had to disable the wireless, turn it back on again. They showed up. Not really too much of an issue. Fingerprint Reader, randomly, just out of the blue, didn't want to read my thumb. And that only happened once out of 1 week of using it. Otherwise, everything else is great. The battery life, charge time is very quick. Of course, I have to use the fast charge that they include. So you don't get the warp charging that you get on the OnePlus 7 Pro. That's another reason to go for that one if you want the fastest charging times. But really a solid phone, good build to it, and I really do enjoy it after the 1 week with this. The video quality as well, room for improvement. The audio is not really that great, a little bit scratchy. They need to increase the bit rate. Sounds like Xiaomi. Xiaomi has the same exact problem. It seems to be a Chinese phone manufacturer issue. That one right there. The photo quality could be tweaked, and of course night mode, the night mode isn't that great. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please give a thumbs up because that really helps out with YouTube's algorithm. And do subscribe to the channel for more up and coming videos from me. Bye for now.